How many times have you stayed silent when everything in you was screaming to speak? Have you ever felt like the world is louder than your voice? Like your thoughts are trapped inside, and speaking up feels like an impossible challenge? You're not alone. In a world full of noise, the loudest thing can be silence, but sometimes the most powerful action you can take is to refuse to be quiet. Sometimes silence feels like the safest option. You tell yourself, if I just stay quiet, maybe the storm will pass. How many times have you swallowed pain just to keep the peace? And when was the last time your silence cost you something? But here's the truth. Silence isn't always safety. Sometimes silence is a prison. When someone hurts you physically, emotionally, verbally, and you say nothing, that silence becomes permission. It tells them, you can do it again, you can get away with it. And the longer you stay quiet, the louder their power grows. But it's not your fault. Many people stay silent out of fear. Fear of backlash. Fear of not being believed. But the problem is, what we tolerate silently, we normalize silently. And what we normalize, we teach others to expect. Have you ever nodded and smiled while something inside you was breaking? At work, maybe you took on too much, didn't set boundaries. In a relationship, maybe you kept saying it's okay when it wasn't. And over time, that silence builds up like pressure in a sealed bottle until one day you explode or you shut down completely. Resentment is quiet poison, and it often starts with the words we're too scared to say. Every time you silence your truth just to keep others comfortable, you teach yourself that your voice doesn't matter. You teach your inner child that their feelings don't count. You betray the most honest part of you, the one that just wants to be seen, heard, and respected. Self-betrayal isn't always obvious. It hides behind phrases like, it's not a big deal. Maybe I'm overreacting. I don't want to start drama. But what if you're not overreacting? What if your silence is the only thing standing between you and freedom? I'm not saying go out and shout at the world, but I am saying don't lose your voice in it. You deserve safety. You deserve peace. But you also deserve to be heard. Silence is not strength when it keeps you stuck. And strength is not silence when it comes at the cost of your soul. How many times have you held your tongue because you were scared of what people might think? How many times have you stayed silent because you didn't want others to criticize or judge you? When we stay quiet because of the fear of judgment, we're essentially allowing the opinions of others to define us. This fear often stems from our desire to belong and fit in, especially in social situations where we feel vulnerable. Judgment can come in many forms. It could be verbal criticism, being laughed at, or simply being excluded from a group. But here's the truth. Judgment is inevitable. No matter what you do, someone will always have something to say. It's not about avoiding judgment. It's about learning how to live with it and, more importantly, how to rise above it in a world where everyone has an opinion. The question we need to ask ourselves is, whose judgment matters more, others or mine? What happens when we speak out? Sometimes, the fear of consequences weighs heavier than our desire to express ourselves. This fear is real, especially in situations where speaking up could lead to loss, whether the job, a friendship, or even our safety. The consequences of speaking up can seem overwhelming. What if your words result in a conflict? What if they change the course of your life? Or worse, bring harm to someone you love? The fear of what will happen if we express ourselves can be paralyzing. But here's a sobering thought. Silence is its own consequence. When we remain silent, we are often protecting the status quo, which might not always be healthy or fair. In many cases, staying silent out of fear can cause us to lose ourselves, to let things go that shouldn't, or to accept what's wrong because we were afraid of what would happen if we spoke out. It's a tough balance to strike. But sometimes, the consequences of staying silent are far worse than the temporary discomfort of speaking up. What if the consequences of not speaking are greater than the consequences of speaking? How many times have you silenced yourself just to be part of the crowd? Just to fit in? To avoid standing out or being labeled as different? We all want to feel seen, heard, and accepted. And the need to be liked or accepted can push us to stay quiet when we should be voicing our opinions or standing up for ourselves. This is especially true in social settings, where we might worry about being rejected, criticized, or misunderstood if we say what's truly on our minds. However, this need for external validation can be limiting. The desire to be liked by everyone often keeps us from being authentic. It keeps us from being true to our values, our beliefs, and even our own needs. Over time, this desire to please others can lead to self-doubt and a loss of personal identity. So, the question we should ask ourselves is the approval of others worth the cost of my own truth? Think about the messages you received as a child. How often were you told to be quiet, don't speak out of turn, or children should be seen and not heard? From a young age, many of us are conditioned to stay quiet. We're taught to avoid confrontation, to be polite, and to hold back our opinions. These lessons are often well-intentioned, designed to teach respect, but they can have long-lasting effects. For some of us, these childhood lessons become ingrained in our behavior, carrying over into adulthood. As adults, we may still feel the weight of those old lessons, believing that silence is safer than speaking up. We might even feel guilty or ashamed when we express ourselves openly, especially if we've internalized the idea that speaking out is wrong or disrespectful. But as we grow, we must recognize that our voices are powerful, and silencing ourselves to avoid conflict or out of a sense of learned behavior doesn't serve us in the long run. It's about breaking free from the conditioning that says our thoughts don't matter. What would happen if I gave myself permission to speak up, no matter what I was told as a child? In the end, we need to remember that silence may seem safe in the moment, but over time, it can eat away at us. We might remain quiet because of fear of judgment, fear of consequences, the desire to be liked, or old habits learned in childhood. But the truth is, your voice matters. Silence is not always golden. Sometimes, silence is the loudest cry for help, the deepest act of self-betrayal, or the invisible cage that holds us back from living fully. What would happen if we stopped being afraid to speak up, if we broke free from the silence and allowed our true selves to be heard? You've heard the saying, silence is golden. But what if, in some cases, silence is actually costing you more than you think? Today, we're going to talk about the hidden price of silence. And trust me, it's one that often gets overlooked until it's too late. First, let's talk about what happens when we stay silent about the things that matter most to us. Our beliefs, our feelings, our needs. Over time, you start to lose sight of who you are. You begin to silence part of yourself to keep the peace or to avoid conflict. The problem? Every time you suppress your voice, you suppress a part of your identity. The more you do it, the harder it becomes to remember who you truly are, because you spent so long living for others, keeping quiet to avoid uncomfortable situations or emotions. And guess what? The longer this goes on, the harder it becomes to regain your self-respect. You begin to believe you're not worth speaking up for. You start to doubt yourself and your needs. And the worst part? The people around you start to take advantage of the silence because they see you're willing to put everyone else's comfort before your own. Pause for reflection. Have you ever found yourself agreeing to something just to avoid an argument or to fit in, but later you feel empty or even regretful because that decision didn't reflect who you truly are? Next, when you stay silent in the face of injustice or things that aren't right, you enable those wrong things to continue. It's easy to stay quiet and hope that things will fix themselves. But in reality, when you remain silent, you're allowing the wrong behavior, actions, or situations to persist. This could be anything from tolerating mistreatment from others, to ignoring injustices in your community, or even turning a blind eye to unethical practices in your workplace. Silence, in this case, becomes a form of consent. You're allowing these things to continue simply by not stepping up and saying something. You might convince yourself that it's easy to stay quiet, but over time, it erodes your values. You begin to wonder why things aren't changing, but then you realize you never spoke up when you should have. That silence is not just a pause, it's a silent approval. Pause for reflection. Think about a time when you let something slide because you didn't want to stir the pot. How did that make you feel afterwards? One of the most dangerous effects of silence is what it does to your mental health. When you keep everything bottled inside, pretending everything is okay, it eventually catches up with you. Silence leads to emotional suppression. You're not letting yourself feel, express, or release what's building up inside. And when those emotions have nowhere to go, they turn into anxiety, stress, and depression. You might feel like you're wearing a mask of the world, but inside, you're carrying the weight of all the things you wish you could say. It starts to affect your energy, your mood, and your overall well-being. And then there's bottled rage, the anger that you push down to avoid confrontation. That anger doesn't just disappear. It festers. It poisons your relationships, your sense of peace, and even your physical health. The longer you keep quiet, the harder it becomes to address that anger or sadness. And eventually, it takes a toll on everything around you. Have you ever felt like you're holding in more than you can handle? The weight of unspoken words, unresolved emotions. Do you think it's been affecting your peace of mind? Now let's talk about time. Time is something none of us can get back. Every day we choose silence over speaking our truth. We miss opportunities. We miss the chance to connect with others, to build real relationships, to speak up for what's right, to set boundaries, and to go after what we truly want in life. If you stay silent about your dreams, your ambitions, or even your struggles, you miss the opportunity to grow, learn, and improve. It's like standing still while the world moves forward around you. There's also a subtle cost here: lost time. Every day you delay having important conversations or addressing what's bothering you, you lose precious moments that could have been used to build something meaningful or to heal a situation. Missed opportunities don't just affect your career or your personal life. They shape your entire future. The silence you keep today might be the reason why you're stuck in a place you no longer want to be. Pause for reflection. What have you put off saying because you didn't want to face the consequences? Could speaking out have led to something better, something more aligned with who you want to be? The cost of silence is real. It steals pieces of yourself. It lets the wrong things persist. It eats away at your peace, and it robs you of time and opportunities you'll never get back. But here's the thing. It's never too late to start speaking, to reclaim your voice, to stand up for what's right, to express your feelings, your needs, and your truth. The cost of silence might be heavy, but the cost of silence broken is a gift of freedom. Freedom to be who you are, to create the life you want, and to inspire others to do the same. Have you ever felt that no one was listening to you? Or maybe you've been in a room full of people and still felt invisible. What if I told you that your voice can change everything around you? We often think our stories are insignificant, but that couldn't be further from the truth. The truth is your experiences, the pain, the joy, the struggles, are unique. They are part of your journey, and whether you realize it or not, they have the power to heal others. Think about this for a moment. How many times have you listened to someone's story and thought, wow, that's exactly how I feel? Your voice is a tool for connection. By sharing your pain or triumphs, you can reach someone who thought they were alone, who thought no one else understood. Imagine being the person who finally gives someone permission to feel heard. Sometimes just one person speaking out can create a ripple effect, turning the quiet into a chorus of shared experiences, making people feel seen, understood, and not alone. Boundaries are not about walls or distance. They're about teaching others how to respect and value you. You see, without saying anything, people will often take advantage of your silence. They'll push your limits, because without a firm voice saying this is not okay, how would they know? When you speak up and say, this is where I draw the line, you are asserting your self-worth. You're showing others that you respect yourself, and in turn, you're demanding the same from them. It's not always easy, and I know it can be terrifying, especially when we fear rejection or conflict. But imagine the freedom you'll feel when you finally stand firm in your worth. Speaking your truth doesn't just protect you, it teaches others how to treat you. Boundaries are a language, and your voice is the key to it. Now, this may sound bold, but it's true. Your voice can change the world around you. Whether it's speaking out in your community, in your workplace, or on a global scale, words have power. Think about how movements like civil rights, women's rights, and even mental health awareness gain momentum. They didn't start in a courtroom or a conference hall. They started with one person deciding they were no longer going to stay silent. One voice, then two, then millions. Sometimes, the fear of speaking out is rooted in believing you're just one person. So what difference could you possibly make? But I'm here to tell you, you matter. When you raise your voice, you create space for others to follow. This is how systems change. This is how laws get rewritten. One powerful voice can ignite a shift in a room, in a policy, or in an entire community. Your words don't have to be revolutionary. They just have to be real. When you speak, you allow others to stand with you, and together, that voice becomes a force strong enough to challenge the status quo. I want you to remember one thing. Your voice matters. You matter. Every time you choose to speak your truth, whether it's sharing your personal story, setting boundaries, or speaking up for change, you are creating the opportunity for something incredible to happen. Imagine if we all spoke out more, if we all shared our experiences, if we all set clear boundaries and expected to be treated with respect. The world would be a different place. It would be a place where people are heard, where silence doesn't hold us back, but where our voices come together to create something greater than ourselves. If you've been holding back, or if you've been struggling with speaking up, I want to challenge you today. Start small. Maybe it's just telling someone how you feel, or standing up for yourself when it counts. But whatever it is, know that your voice has power. When most people think about speaking up, they often imagine raising their voices, shouting, or demanding attention. But volume isn't always the key to getting heard. In fact, in some situations, the loudest voices can be the hardest to hear clearly because they come with noise, chaos, and distraction. Clarity is what truly captures attention. When you speak clearly, whether in a calm tone or a loud one, you communicate your message in a way that can be understood and, most importantly, respected. Think about this. A loud voice can be ignored, but clear, intentional message sticks. It's about precision and purpose in your words, not how loudly you speak them. You can stand in the midst of a storm, with everything around you swirling and chaotic, but if you speak with clarity, people will pause and listen. So, when you're ready to speak, take your time, breathe, and deliver your words with intention. Slow down if needed. People may not always listen to the loudest voices, but they will always pay attention to the most sincere and thought-out ones. Not every moment is the right one to speak out, and not everyone deserves to hear your voice. Choosing the right space and the right people to confide in is essential for both your safety and your emotional well-being. Safe spaces are environments where you feel comfortable, understood, and accepted. These could be with close friends, family, support groups, or professionals. A safe space doesn't judge, belittle, or dismiss your feelings. It's a place where you can express yourself freely without fear of retaliation or misunderstanding. Trust is the foundation here. If you're not sure whether someone is the right person to confide in, ask yourself, will this person listen without judgment? Can I be vulnerable with them without fear of being criticized or misunderstood? Do I feel comfortable expressing my thoughts and feelings freely? It's important to remember that some situations require discretion. You may not always feel comfortable speaking out in front of certain people or in certain environments. Protect your peace by identifying those who support your growth, your voice, and your truth. And even more importantly, if you feel unsafe or threatened, your voice may need to be kept for your own protection. Find the courage to speak when you are ready and in spaces where you feel protected. Sometimes, words alone may not feel enough. Your voice can take many forms: writing, art, protests, or even public speaking. The way you express yourself doesn't have to fit a mold. In fact, one of the most powerful tools you have is your creativity. If speaking directly doesn't feel possible or safe, writing can be your sanctuary. Whether it's journaling, poetry, blog posts, or letters, writing can be an outlet for you to organize your thoughts, express your feelings, and share your message with others. Some of the most powerful voices in history were not loudspeakers. They were authors, poets, and letter writers who used their written words to spark change. Transcends language. A painting, sculpture, photograph, or performance can communicate emotions and ideas that words often fail to capture. Art can be a channel to express pain, hope, rebellion, or love. If speaking feels too difficult, allow art to carry the weight of your message. Sometimes, a single image speaks louder than 1,000 words. Sometimes, speaking out requires collective action. Joining a protest or movement allows you to amplify your voice alongside others who share your cause. Protests are a way to show solidarity and make your message clear on a larger scale. But protest doesn't always have to be loud or violent. It can be peaceful, thoughtful, and deliberate. It's a powerful reminder that your voice, when joined with others, can create a force for change. When you feel prepared, public speaking can be an extraordinary way to communicate. Whether it's a speech, a presentation, or just sharing your truth in front of an audience, public speaking gives you the chance to connect with others in a very personal and impactful way. But public speaking doesn't just mean standing on a stage. It can happen in small meetings, community groups, or even at the family dinner table. The truth is, your voice doesn't have to be limited to one form. You don't have to fit into someone else's definition of speaking out. You can find a medium that works for you. Your message can resonate through writing, images, music, movements, or in intimate conversations. There are so many ways to speak that you'll never be without a voice. Remember this, the way you speak doesn't define your value. It's the fact that you speak at all that matters. Whether you choose to speak softly, loudly, through art, or by simply sharing your thoughts with a trusted friend, you matter. Your voice is a gift, and how you use it is up to you. The key is to be intentional with your voice, to choose the right moment, and to find the safest, most empowering spaces to share your truth. Your silence is powerful, but your voice when used intentionally can be transformative, not just for you, but for others. Look, I get it. Sometimes it feels safer to blend in, to stay quiet, to not rock the boat. Society often asks us to mute ourselves because we might be too loud, too bold, or just too different for some people's comfort. But here's the truth. The world needs the real you. It doesn't need a version of you that's toned down to fit in, or you that's afraid to speak up because of what others might think. There's a reason why you're here, in this moment, with your unique experiences, perspectives, and dreams. The world doesn't need the version of you that conforms to expectations. It needs you exactly as you are, bold, authentic, and unapologetic. Every time you silence your true self, the world loses out on something precious, something that only you can offer. So I want to remind you, don't be afraid to take up space. Don't be afraid to let your voice be heard. The world needs what only you can bring to the table. Now, I know it's not easy. Opening up or speaking out can feel intimidating, but I want to challenge you today, just for a moment, to step out of your comfort zone. Share one thing today that you've been holding back. It could be something you've been afraid to tell a friend, a family member, or even yourself. Maybe it's a truth you've buried deep inside, or a story you've never dared to tell. It doesn't have to be huge, but it should be something real, something that's been weighing you down. Imagine the freedom you could feel if you let it out. Think about how much lighter your heart could be. The world can only hear your voice if you speak it out loud. Don't keep it locked inside. This isn't just for the sake of others. It's for you, for your healing, your growth, and your peace of mind. So, I'm challenging you to take that first step today. Speak up about something you've been holding back. Repeat after me, because this is important. My voice matters. I am not invisible. I know it's easy to feel like your voice doesn't count, like no one is listening. Maybe you tried to speak up before, and it didn't go the way you hoped. Maybe you've been told to be quiet, that your thoughts don't matter, or that you're just too much. But that's a lie. Your voice is power. You have the ability to change things. Whether you're speaking to one person or 1,000, your voice matters. You are not invisible. Your words, your presence, your energy, they all leave an impact. Even if you can't see it right now, believe me, the world feels the impact when you speak your truth. So, today, stand in the truth that your voice is important. You are not meant to live quietly, shrinking away from the world. You are meant to shine, to speak, and to be heard. Every time you say something that's true to you, you make the world a little more real. And the more you speak, the more others will find their courage too. You're not alone. You're not invisible. The world doesn't need a quieter you. It needs your voice, your truth, and your presence. Don't let anyone, or even yourself, convince you that silence is the only answer. Speak out. Speak up. Speak loud. Your voice matters. And you are never, ever invisible. Remember, your voice matters. Don't stay silent when you have something important to say. Speak up, share your thoughts, and be heard. If this resonated with you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more content that challenges the quiet and celebrates the power of expression. Stay bold, stay loud, and I'll see you in the next video.